Welcome to another episode of America Uncanceled on CPAC Now. It's been a crazy, almost a week since the last election, and we don't really know everything that's happened. And that just shouldn't be in a democracy. As we've said several times, we wouldn't accept results like this coming from another democracy around the globe. The idea that we've made it so easy in some of the jurisdictions in this country to vote twice, to vote for other people, to vote without an ID, to vote without someone checking your signature when you vote through the mail. It's very distressing. That's one aspect of what I'd say is a pretty disappointing election to a lot of Republicans. I have to eat some crow. I really did think it was going to be a big red wave. Getting the House majority is a big deal because Paul Pelosi will be free to do his thing because she's going to be out of power. But now the question is this: it's a very slender majority for us in the House, and we really thought it would be much more vigorous. So in a good time, you hope to swell your majority, because in the bad times, you're going to shed seats. We didn't pick up too many marginal seats, so maybe that dynamic of ebb and flow won't be so big. And the Senate was just, let's face it, was a wash. A lot of people are asking questions about how investments were made. Why was Blake Masters left to kind of wither on the vine? Why was General Baldock left to wither on the vine, even though that race turned out to be not as close as all the polling in New Hampshire showed it was, including St. A's poll, which had him up to the night before Election Day. So who better to break this all down with than radio show host extraordinaire Larry O'Connor, the host of O'Connor and Company, which I listen to every morning here in the Swamp on WMAL here in Washington. And he also has a new gig, O'Connor Tonight, on the Salem News Channel, which is a really fun show. I've checked out a few episodes. Larry, thanks for joining me. Can you give me some counseling?
Yeah, Matt. In fact, I'm happy to do that. I'm a positive, upbeat guy. You're a pretty positive guy too, and so I think this, bad mood that we're all in, I think, comes partly because of expectations, and also because, well, listen, let's face it, the week after an election, there's a lot of profit to be made, literally and figuratively, from people saying, oh, if you'd only listened to me, if you only did what I did, we would have done better, right? Tell me a week before the election what we should do instead of a week after, because everyone's good at it now. But we did have, actually, in many respects, not the night that we wanted, but we had a very good night, and let me tell you why. We had a red wave in Florida. Matt, I'm old enough to remember you at the Brooks Brothers riots of 2000.
Fair point.
Right? Florida, how many presidential elections did we have to sweat through, Matt, with Florida being a toss-up? Who knows? Oh my gosh. And you know how the Republican electoral map goes. Without Florida, it is so hard to win the presidency if you're a Republican. Well, Florida, it looks like now, at least for the next election, and maybe the next one after that, is off the map. It's in Republicans' back pocket, and that's huge to be able to focus the next presidential election and not really worry about Florida. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I would expand your thinking. Ron DeSantis had a great victory, and well-deserved victory, but also all the way down the ballot, all those people won by nearly 20 points, 20 point-ish. Ashley Moody, the Attorney General, other statewide elected officials. Texas, there's all this talk about Texas is turning purple, Texas is going blue.
Beto, baby, Beto.
Beto, baby. That's the other piece of good news. Bye-bye, Beto. But, all those statewide elected officials, including our great friend Ken Paxton, won by about 10 points. So Texas had a big red wave. Florida had a big red wave. Iowa, which was another bellwether state, went all Republican. We won every congressional race. The improbable Chuck Grassley, who's at not a young age, won another 6 years. North Carolina picked up another seat for their Supreme Court. So all these bellwether states, these kind of coin flip states, a lot of them have gone our way. Think of Ohio. If you didn't talk about Florida being the toss-up state, it was always Ohio, and that state has moved solidly red.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Ohio and Florida now are sort of in Republicans' back. I shouldn't take it for granted, but it's a much easier map now. So you got that red wave down on the Gulf Coast, right? Absolutely. And by the way, let's not forget Wisconsin, which truly is a coin flip toss-up state these days. But that's better than being solid blue like it had been for about 2
Fair
decades.
point.
And Ron Johnson, how many times have we heard Ron Johnson's political obituary from Rachel Maddow? And he won again. He knows how to win in Wisconsin. Hopefully the next presidential nominee, when they put together their Wisconsin strategy, they just sit with Ron Johnson, buy him a nice cold Milwaukee
I don't know
beer and say,
he's always
what do I do?
working. I'm not so sure he'd take you up on the beer, but maybe some club soda.
Fair enough. Here's some more good news. You alluded to it. Not only Bye Bye Beto, but you've got 3 of the biggest, obnoxious, annoying losers that spend all their time on regular media, cable news. Stacey Abrams, Charlie Crist, what an odious individual he is, and Beto O'Rourke. I mean, how many hundreds of millions of dollars have they raised promising Democrat voters that they're going to win the big one and make a difference, and they never do?
I always wonder about Stacey Abrams now. Is she the former governor? Since she won the last time and lost this time, I always get confused on her title.
Yeah, in fact, when she did finally concede to Kemp last week, was she actually conceding the race she lost 4 years ago that she never conceded? It's a good question, Matt. Someone in the media needs to ask this.
Well, I think she's going to be always our future former governor because I don't think she's ever going to get there. So but what you say, since I'm conservative, I'll go back to being a pessimist. But
I've got
sorry.
more good news before you become a pessimist. Real fast. Republican governors were undefeated. They defended every single one of their seats, and they picked up one. They flipped Nevada from Democrat to Republican. So that's good news because you know how powerful and important those Republicans are, as Republican governors are, right? And then one final one. Listen, whether we have a 1-seat majority in the House of Representatives or a 40-seat majority in the House of Representatives, it wouldn't make much of a difference legislatively because Matt, you have the majority in the House and the Senate, and it doesn't matter because Joe Biden's in the White House. So you can pass as many bills as you want. He's going to veto them. So the legislative difference between 1 seat and 40 seats is nothing. It's the same thing. But as soon as you have that 1-seat majority, Matt, that gavel and the power that comes with it, it's the same size gavel no matter how big your majority is. And what it means is the Republicans have the majority, Nancy Pelosi goes into retirement, Biden and the Democrats' destructive legislative agenda ends today, period. It's over. And they control the committees. So now we've got Jim Jordan, head of the Judiciary Committee, instead of Adam Schiff, or no, actually it's the guy from New York who's the
Jerry Nadler
right now.
Jerry Nadler.
And now, in judiciary, in oversight, in ways and means, in intelligence, we now control the agenda, we control the hearings, and we control the investigation.
And we have the staff.
That is huge.
And we have the staff and we have the lawyers, which is key. So let me just mention something about this small majority. The small majority actually doesn't bother me. Most conservatives, most members of the House Freedom Caucus, they like this slender majority because that keeps Kevin McCarthy. He has to make sure he gets the Freedom Caucus behind all of his major initiatives.
Right.
So between the Freedom Caucus and the Republican Study Committee, there's a lot of great conservatives, and that they view that as a positive thing. So I do agree. Look, having the gavels are a big deal. Having the ability to stop Biden's agenda is a really big deal. So I don't want to minimize this. But getting the House is the emergency brake we need on Biden's radical agenda, or Susan Rice's radical agenda, or Joe Biden's radical agenda, or fill in the blank. Ron Klain's.
Barack Obama's.
Barack Obama. He is the kind of the wizard behind the curtain. So if you look at all of that, that is a very positive thing. I started off the show talking about the way we vote, Larry, and I'm more of a political operative in my background than you, because you were like putting on plays and doing like amazing things on Broadway. But I was in the trenches doing political work, and I have to say, it's shocking to see how we vote. It's really upsetting to people, and I think we're hitting to a tipping point. I think people are really upset about this idea. In Nevada, they don't even check the postmarks on these ballots you put through the mail. No. They gave people 3, 4, 5, 6 extra days to vote. You can vote after Election Day. Can be in the count. You can vote multiple times. There's no way to check it. Election night, we got a big problem on our hands.
We do, and listen, you know who's not complaining about the voting system in their state right now? The Democrats who lost in Florida. Think about that for a minute. In Florida, they're not saying, "Oh, we were robbed."
There's no way to say it.
It's right. It's not because of the margin of victory. It's because they have a rock solid system in place there that was thought through. And give credit to Jeb Bush after the hanging Chad nightmare of 2000. He said, we're not going to go through this again. And they worked together to make sure that
and Rick Scott, who fired the first crooked county election official, and then Ron DeSantis came in and fired another one. So they cleaned up Dade County and they cleaned up Broward County. They cleaned up these places where, one official was making a big difference.
And even in Orange County, Ron DeSantis also he actually funded and staffed an election integrity law enforcement unit. Yeah. Did you know that in the state of Georgia, there's something like only 2 law enforcement individuals who are in charge of finding voter fraud? Democrats on the left are always saying, oh, there's no widespread voter fraud. It's because there's no police and law enforcement to actually investigate it. But I think the biggest problem that we have right now in California, Nevada, Arizona, where we saw this ridiculous mess of a process, the biggest problem, Matt, is that what we saw is legal. This is literally the legal voting plan that those state legislators and governors put into place. It's happening according to plan. That's worse than crimes. That's worse than an illegal voting scheme. The fact that this is baked into the law. We got to somehow get back and force some integrity here by getting the laws in line. That's why a lot of courts aren't overturning what we see, because the judges look at the laws and they say, well, yeah, I mean, it fits. Not in all cases, but in
I'll give you a lot of that. You're right. Like in Nevada, they changed all the laws, except you still had to have voter ID. You still have to sign that ballot. So in a state like Nevada, what they're doing is they say, oh, you have to sign that ballot. So what the officials are doing in Clark County, and it's really just the counties where the big cities are, what they're doing in Clark County is they're essentially just not checking the signatures. And how do you know? So the big question to ask in Nevada and Clark County, or what just happened with Kari Lake, is, hey, smart voting people, all you people that tell me, my daughters, that they might want to consider being sons and you should wear masks because we're all in this together. They're the same people, right, who are counting all these ballots, or in charge of counting all these ballots afterwards. The question for them, Larry, and you're a member of the media, and I invite you to ask them, how many ballots were kicked out? What percentage of ballots were ruled invalid? What percentage of ballots had to go through an appeal process to see if they were counted? My guess is what you're going to find is that they put everything through. And that's what we found after the 2020 race in Nevada. They knew what they had done with $417 million of Zuckerbucks. They knew it wasn't about voting by mail. It was about ballots that were mailed in the mail and returned in massive quantities by people. So it's ballots, not votes. And once you get to the point where you can put any piece of paper, any ballot into a box, and there's no scrutiny on it, we're kind of done.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's a big part of it, and we do need to have those. And by the way, that's where the House majority comes into play, because there should be oversight hearings. We should have people from Maricopa. Forget about answering to the people of Arizona. They should be answering to the United States Congress as well.
So James Comer, who's going to be the chairman of the Oversight Committee, a great member of Congress. Jim Jordan is going to be chairman of the Judiciary Committee, another great member of Congress. They've got some serious questions to ask. That's a really good point. Look, Kari Lake's loss, it's a big deal because I think she would have really cleaned things up in Arizona. Maybe Abe Hamadeh can pull out that AG's race in Arizona and do things. But,
he's a good man.
But your Florida example is exactly right. Once you get that governorship and you get some ability to work in the legislature with some majorities, change these laws. And don't change them to help Republicans. Just change them so that we have transparency. Else, we're not going to survive as a country if we keep going out after elections with this garbage that we're seeing.
That's right. And you have to make this case in a very clear and logical and reasoned way if you're an elected official, saying, listen, we can do better. And I think everybody in Arizona and Nevada, California, I've lost hope for. But in Arizona and Nevada, I think most people will say, yeah, this is embarrassing. And pay attention. Pay attention to the Democrats who resist putting a sound policy in place, because it's a tell. It tells you exactly what they're trying to achieve. One other thing, let me mention California for a second, because I think another thing that Republicans need to do is stop running these elections like it's 2012 or 2016 again. Republicans have really good analytics now. They've got great databases. They know where the voters are. But this is no longer a get out the vote challenge. This is a get a hold of the ballots challenge. You remember in 2018 was the first year where they legalized ballot harvesting in California. And just so people know, because they hear this term ballot harvesting and they don't know, what it means is a political operative working for a third-party political action group, like NARAL
Acorn.
or or Acorn or any group, they can knock on your door or go to an apartment building and say, hey, give me your ballot and I'll submit your ballot for you. People hear that in other states and they think that's insane. They shouldn't be able to do that. But in California, it's the law. And in 2018, Republicans hated it and they got swept. You remember in Orange County, California, for the first time in our lives, that went all Democrat. Well, after that 2018 election, Republicans realized, okay, these are the rules of the game now. We hate harvesting, but we got to get in on it too. And just in 2 years, 2 of those 4 congressional seats in Orange County, California went back to being Republican.
Fascinating. So we got to learn the new rules. We need to play the game
based on the rules that are ahead of it, are in place.
I will say one thing on that, Larry. That's a really good point. I see people on Twitter saying we got to change. My criticism is of our leaders. We knew what they did in 2020 with Zuckerbucks. Why didn't we prepare for this same exact play? They ran the same play. Right. It was like right up the middle, right at our faces, and we weren't prepared with the right defense. The second thing is when it comes to ballot harvesting, one of our problems is our volunteers are mostly people that go to church. Most of them are Christian. They have trouble with this idea. They don't have trouble with going to somebody like Larry O'Connor who votes for a Republican and turning that in. They have trouble with what the Democrats have turned it into. Wide scale going to old folks' homes, going to apartment complexes, going to public housing and collecting all the ballots that sit on top of mail receptacles that aren't put in the slots, taking those and filling them out and turning them in. Now, some states that's completely illegal. Some states it's more nebulous. I'm not sure our party will ever do that. They do that. I'm not sure our party will.
Yeah, I'm certainly not advocating for anybody to break the law, but we need to get as aggressive. We need to be able to go to those nursing homes, old retirement homes, retirement communities, and say, hey, early voting, mail-in balloting, it's ubiquitous. This is how it's done now. Let us help you out, because if you don't participate in this, then you're going to keep abortion legal until the date of birth in our state. So we've got to get our people back on the ballot and get going with that. We just have to be able to articulate the issue, and hopefully we'll get people on board.
Well, I think at the old folks' homes it should be easy, because now it seems clearly that they want to get rid of the old people too. So maybe we'll find common cause with them.
Euthanasia is next down the line. You're absolutely prescient. You're right. One other thing on this, by the way, because Republicans, we like to stand on our principles. It's like, no, we're above that. We're not going to do that. And I'm not saying breaking the law. Don't get me wrong. But Glenn Youngkin, who won that great race in Virginia last year, I remember Virginia has early voting, Matt, as you know. You're a Virginian now. And are you officially? You are a Virginian.
I voted in Virginia. And I voted for Glenn Youngkin.
I didn't want to out you or anything. All right. So September 15th last year is when early voting began. And I remember Glenn Youngkin came on my radio show in Washington, which is heard all through Northern Virginia, right? And he said, listen, Larry, I hate early voting. I think early voting is a terrible idea. I think that early voting opens the system up to fraud and nefarious actions. I would love to get away with early voting. However, it is the law. These are the rules. And today's the first day of early voting, so I want everyone who hears me, come out and vote today. Come out. Don't wait till Election Day. Your car could have a flat tire. You could run out of gas. It could be a rainstorm. Come out and vote today. That's the way to do it. Yes, we hate the way these election laws are set up in these states, but until those laws change, we got to make sure we engage and we win based on the rules that the states have, because God knows the Democrats are doing it.
Larry O'Connor, I couldn't agree with you more. Thanks for joining us again on America Uncanceled. Everyone needs to watch your show and listen to you if you're in the, there you go, the Commanders. Or the Redskins, whatever you like to call them. They won. They won. It's very exciting, right?
The Eagles. I'm flying high right now.
Come on, this is good stuff. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for all you do. And of course, we encourage you all to keep watching. The show comes out 7 p.m. on our website, cpac.org. And you can see it all over. We cut it up and put it on every social media platform imaginable. And of course, we have CPAC coming up in March, back in our nation's capital, where we're going to take this city back over again. And that's March 1st through the 4th. And keep praying for America, and let's all keep fighting for America. God bless.